Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to another KenCast. We've got a very special KenCast for you today. How are you doing, Cobra Kai fans? It's been about a week since we heard about the news of the 6th and final season of Cobra Kai. And, today we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about your feelings now that you've had some time to process all your ideas going forward. Is this the end of Cobra Kai? Will season 6 be the end, or are we going to go beyond season 6 somehow with these characters? I don't know. There's a lot to talk about. And I'm glad you're here watching today, whether you're watching live or on the replay. If you're watching live, we have this live chat. Jump in, tell us your thoughts. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and throw your comments below the video, and that's permanently associated to the video, and we'll still get to hear all your thoughts in this interesting discussion. Now, today is a very special day because I get to introduce to you some of the channel members. That's right, some of the people who support the channel, who are finalists and above, but they're also fans like you, and you've seen them in the chat, and I'm just very excited to introduce them to you because now you'll be able to put a face with a name. So first off, I am very privileged to introduce to you Ander Russell, and Ander is Governor. You've seen him in the chat as Governor. Ander, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great, Ken. Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, so Ander, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and also how did you get interested in the Karate Kid Cobra Kai universe?
Cool. So I'm based in Cheltenham in the UK, so a couple of hours outside of London. Yeah, my main memories of getting into Cobra Kai was, I guess, from like the early 90s. I had some very vague memories of having seen at least the first two films, because my only real memories of it were the scene in the first film where Kreese basically tells Bobby to take Daniel out of commission. He says about getting disqualified, and also the scene in the parking lot of Kreese punching out the windows. So I had no idea sort of where they kind of fitted into the timeline of the films, but those are my sort of vague memories of having watched them. But I think I said to you before, my biggest memory of Karate Kid when I was much younger was actually not being able to watch it. Basically having to sort of go out, do a family thing while my dad was staying at home watching Karate Kid, and me and my siblings all wanted to stay home and watch it with him, and we weren't allowed to. So that was kind of my biggest memory, was I wanted to watch it and I couldn't. So when I started at university in sort of 2007, I managed to find the DVD during my first semester. It was about £3 in the local supermarket. So I really enjoyed watching the film, getting that opportunity to do it. I think the big thing for me was very much, so Daniel LaRusso, he kind of, anyone could be Daniel LaRusso, and the fact that it also made karate, I guess, so accessible. Things like doing the wax on, wax off, they are very iconic moves that, people can at least pretend to do to like learn karate. And because I enjoyed that one so much, I then got the second and the third film for Christmas. Really enjoyed it. I thought the second film, I thought it did a good job of fleshing out Mr. Miyagi's backstory a bit and making him a more prominent character rather than someone who was supporting Daniel. And then, of course, Karate Kid 3, you introduce these crazy over-top villains. Terry Silver obviously jumped out to us immediately. He is so entertaining in that film. I think even critically, it doesn't get particularly good reviews, but I've never seen anyone who can be critical of Thomas Ian Griffith's performance in that film. And I think he just owned every scene that he was in. And that's still my favorite one to go back to, because whilst critically it is not as strong as the other two, for me, it's by far the most entertaining, and he is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I love how you draw that distinction. It's sort of like this, critically, you can say that, maybe the first one was like the best movie, but the idea that the third one is the most entertaining, because of Terry Silver and Thomas Ian Griffith's great performance. That's great, Andrew. I am 100% in agreement with you. And everyone in the comments, let us know what you think. If you had a similar story to Ander, let us know, because it's interesting how he maybe kind of had similar stories about how he got into watching stories of the Miyagi-verse. So, Ander, thank you for joining us today. And Ander, I'd like to introduce you to people in the chat, people who you've talked with in the chat before, and we'll say hi to everyone. Tigterrysilverrocks, thank you for joining us today. Good to see you. Thanks for being a channel member, and best of luck. I know you're kind of bravely dealing with some stuff right now, and I really want to thank you for joining us in the midst of all that. I'll also notice that Tigterrysilverrocks is an executive producer of this KenCast, so we're very privileged to have her with us today. So good to see you. Batman 2025, No Mercy. Good to see you. Robana, another channel member. Happy Sunday, Ken. Happy Sunday to you too. Allie, good to see you. Lisa Barrett, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for being a channel member. Steve Strong, do you think season 6 will be later this year, like December or early 2024? Now, this is a hot topic, Ander, as far as like people are wondering when is it going to come out, and we've had some sort of like back and forth on this. Hayden Schlossberg, who is one of the geniuses behind Cobra Kai, he had a tweet somewhere around Christmas this year where he said he's kind of hoping, fingers crossed, that it's going to be coming out about the same time next year, like around holiday season, I guess, maybe into New Year. We've had some recent kind of talks from people associated with the crew that it could be in 2024. I don't know. Do you, what's your sense, Ander, of when we might see season 6?
I think now that the decision has been made that season 6 will be the final one, and I know that they have kind of teased that there could be potential spin-offs from this, so they don't necessarily need to wrap up the entire story in season 6. But I think now that we know this is going to be the final season, that there's going to be probably a lot more thought into how do we wrap this up in a way that is satisfying. We also don't know what the structure of the season is going to be like. I think we kind of have to assume, unless we hear otherwise, that it's going to be the same format as the other seasons, so 10 episodes with a longer finale. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think I could see it sort of around this time next year. I don't really. It would be great if it was around for the holiday season, but at the same time, I think all of us as fans, we don't want to rush it, because knowing this is the final season, they really need to get it right. So obviously that takes time and working out exactly how they tie all these loose ends together. And it may be a case of there are some loose ends that could be sort of tied up in a spin-off. Maybe some things would happen that actually a spin-off, like sort of prequel series, maybe like a Silver and Kreese, or maybe even a Mr. Miyagi prequel series, could explain a bit more. But yeah, I think for me, I just, I hope they don't rush it, and they really kind of consider how we wrap this up in a way that actually all fans are going to be saying, like, okay, yeah, it's sad it's ended, but this is a good place to, kind of put a stop to it, because obviously it can go on forever anyway.
Right. It's about how they do it, right? Like if you watch it to the end and you feel like, wow, I feel complete, like that makes it feel complete, then we're not going to complain. We'll probably celebrate it. And frankly, with a really good ending, I think it just makes the entire series much more rewatchable, right? Because you and we've watched the original Karate Kid movies probably umpteenth times, and it's okay. They came to an end, but we just rewatched them, right? So anyway, so yeah, those are some great thoughts, Ander. Let's see. We've got Marianella. Hey, Ken. Hey, everyone. Good to see you. TXR, thanks for being a channel member. Really appreciate it. Hello to you, too. Clifford. Hello there. Hi, Clifford. Lisa says, I would like to see a prequel to The Karate Kid with a young pre-World War II Miyagi. And Ander, you just mentioned, these kind of spin-off series, these spin-off ideas that they could launch into. If we were to see a prequel, would you like to see it in the form of a feature film, or would you like to see it in the form of a series if it's, say, about a young Mr. Miyagi?
That's a really good question. And I feel like I don't know. I feel like I would always favor a series over over a film, but it really depends how much backstory they kind of have to share with it. Because I think one of the big things with having Cobra Kai as a series, there's so much more time to develop the characters and actually flesh them out far more than you're ever going to be able to do in a film.
Right.
And I kind of feel like, so I don't know, as a medium, it sort of feels like series are becoming more prominent now. I think maybe because streaming is a much bigger thing than sort of like going to the cinema now. You obviously get a lot of films that actually just go straight to streaming services rather than, like people having to go out to watch them. I think my feeling would always be, a season gives you far more time to really kind of develop it. But ultimately, if it depends how much of a story they feel they have to tell with it.
Yes, I agree. It's like the modern paradigm, I guess, is having it in series form. Like that's maybe the most prestigious way to do it now, which is interesting because, when we were growing up, it was, about being on the big screen, movies. That's like the top form of, prestige for entertainment. And yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's see. We've got Maite, I think. Hola, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Michael Blaine says, Ken needs a cameo in the final season. I think well, that's very kind. That's a very kind thought. And I would not say no. I would not say no. Lanny says, hello. Hello to you too. Terry Silver says, save Silver, save Cobra Kai. Yes. And Andrew, I know you're a huge Terry Silver fan. I just want to throw this up here. Save Silver. Are you? Would you say you're on board with the Save Silver movement?
Oh, absolutely. I've already shared the reel to my Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
I'm fully behind the Save Silver movement. Yeah, to me, there's no way these charges can stick. I think those people bring them against him need to be very careful because I think Silver has far more ammunition against them than they do to him if it goes down the legal route.
Yes, indeed, 100%. And you bring up such a key point. My goodness, the resources that Terry Silver has. You have to be very careful with someone like that. The Batman says Terry Silver never dies. The Big T, thank you for joining us, Big T. It's always an honor when you're here. Big T says you have excellent taste, Ender. So that is just a compliment and an endorsement that, I don't know, that sticks with you your entire life, I think, right, Andrew? The Big T himself.
Completely. Yes. Been such an idol of mine for so long. It's it's really the highest praise you can you can receive.
Okay, so we're talking about, a role model, an idol, and I have to bring this up because I do get comments. I get comments on my YouTube videos and on social media, and people are horrified that I'm actually a fan of Terry Silver, that I'm upholding the values of this guy who's a villain, who's done all this bad stuff. And I don't know, Andrew, I was wondering if I could get your perspective because I think we're kind of on the same wavelength. How would you respond to people who appear to be disturbed by the fact that we're fans of Terry Silver, who to them is a villain?
I think you just got to look at some of these sort of videos that you can find through YouTube. So one of them was from many years ago. It was a recut trailer of Karate Kid 3, and it actually shows Terry Silver for the hero that he is. He's he's a good friend. He takes care of John Kreese, sends him to Tahiti. He buys him all these dojos. They say he's an honorable teacher. He opens this chain of Cobra Kai dojos so that young people can come and learn the same values he's learned: the honesty,
Right.
compassion, and fair play. These are the lessons he's trying to teach. And there's another really good series of videos on YouTube, and they were the crimes of Daniel LaRusso, breaking down the first 3 films. And when it got to Karate Kid 3, it shows all the evil stuff that Daniel LaRusso has done, but Terry Silver appears in this, and he has a halo over his head, and it's so deserved because he's telling Daniel, karate is about defense. He's like, he's preaching all these like really, really good values. And even looking at like sort of the Cobra Kai series,
Right.
there's a lot. They have the fight in season 8, to try and get into the Seikei Taikai, and there's accusations that Terry Silver's like bribed the referee again. But as you can kind of see from watching it, it's the Miyagi-Fang senseis who are complaining to the referee. I mean, Terry Silver's just letting him do his job.
Right.
He's staying out of all that politics. He's
Right.
kind of keeping his dignity and his reputation. He's not lowering himself to the same level as the other senseis are. So I think you just need to look at all the good things he has done.
Right.
He also he says that he is giving free karate lessons to underprivileged children.
Mhm.
That's a huge thing, like for someone like him to be doing. So for all the criticism of him, he's not faultless.
Right.
He's only human after all. But he's trying to do a lot of good things, and actually, it's the likes of Daniel LaRusso who keep trying to get in his way.
Mhm.
So and many of the things that he is trying to do that people perceive to be really evil, I mean, it's just people are getting in the way of him trying to do these good things for people. So
Mhm.
I think it's I think a lot of the criticism is undeserved.
Yeah. 100% agree. And it's sort of like you bring up all the work he's doing for underprivileged children. That auction scene, for example. He uh okay, before it's important for people to be able to kind of look at things. Obviously, Cobra Kai looks at things through Daniel's point of view and Johnny's point of view, but that's not the only point of view. And so we encourage people to try and look at it from Terry's point of view, which is exactly what Andrew's been saying. Like, what is Terry doing? And we saw Daniel being very upset that Terry Silver pledged $30,000 for those bonsai trees. But that money went to these underprivileged kids. It was well beyond what other people were bidding. I mean, is that not a good thing? And I understand LaRusso is very upset based on his history. But I mean, if he could just step outside his own feelings for a second, why would he be upset that his bonsai trees got $30,000 given to underprivileged children? It's really, Terry's doing lots of great stuff. It's just Daniel's reaction. You're caught up in his emotional reaction to Terry Silver. When you look at things, he's doing everything right. I mean, Terry is, I think. I don't know. Is that fair, Andrew?
I completely agree.
Yes.
He didn't have to bid $30,000 to get those bonsai trees, but he did it out of in the name of charity. And of course, yes, he makes a comment to Daniel about using them for mulch, but we already know Terry Silver likes to be in control, and
Right.
in many ways, yes, that is a fault of his, and sometimes he does things that aren't quite right. But that was in the face of Daniel, sort of like basically ordering him to take care of the bonsai tree. So this is someone trying to tell Terry Silver what to do, and
Right.
we saw with John Kreese, what happens when you try to order him around. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's a slight it's a slight fault of his, but I mean it's in the face of provocation.
Right. And there's not one moment in this entire series so far where Daniel was willing to sit and talk with Terry and try to work things out like an adult. When Terry tried to do that a couple times, you're right. He needs to control things and he's not a perfect person. But Daniel never even tried to sit down and talk with him and come to an agreement about anything. He just completely tried to throw everything in Terry's face. It was Daniel's way or the highway. And I mean, what else is Terry going to do? He's going to poke him. I mean, it's probably fun. I mean, you've got this guy who's coming at you that's, it's probably fun to play with him. That's what Terry does. We can't fault him. Uh, Great to see you all. My goodness, so many wonderful comments. I'm going to try to say hi to as many people, get to as many of these comments as we can. Darkest Hour, great to see you. Daniel, wonderful to see you. AEH, hello. Michael Blaine, good to see you. And we have Ruth from Facebook. Good to see you, Ruth. Thanks for joining us today. We've got Robana, channel member, who's saying Willie Cole was a district attorney, not Silver's lawyer. So we have Cody on Strike First Media. We had a discussion with him once about the character of Willie Cole. Okay. I may or may not be related to Willie Cole. He may or may not be related to Tom Cole. I don't know. You might check out the short film Cobra Kai, Cobra Cole, if you're interested to learn maybe more about that. But Cody from Strike First Media was saying it's very possible we could see Willie Cole, who is mentioned in Karate Kid 3, the bribable DA, that we could see him in Cobra Kai season 6. And as a devotee of Karate Kid 3, Ander, do you think that that's likely? Do you think we could see Willie Cole? This up to this point, we haven't seen him. We've only heard about him, but he was a corrupt, bribable DA that maybe helped Terry out of some legal jams back in the 80s.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, I think it would be great if we got all the Coles into season 6. You know, have like a nice family reunion with Terry Silver. And
Yes,
I
yeah,
think
that
that
would be
would be,
great.
you know, that would be the stuff of dreams. But I think, you know, it is definitely a possibility. I mean, given, you know, we never actually saw Willie Cole. It's not like, you know, he's tied to an actor who, you know, because unfortunately there are actors who have passed. You know, I always forget
Mhm.
his name, but Terry's butler in Karate Kid 3, I always thought it would have been great if he could have made an appearance, and unfortunately the actor has passed away, so that's,
Oh,
you know, so that isn't going to happen. But it's just, I know, I like that they, you know, the series stays very loyal to the previous actors that they've had in the films, but we never had one for Willie Cole, so
right.
I think it's entirely possible that he could, that he could make an appearance. I think that would be great to see.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 100% agree. And I know someone who would be great to play him too. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I have someone I'd recommend. Peter Vonosak, Cobra Kai Companion Podcast. Everyone should listen and follow Cobra Kai Companion Podcast. Peter says, "Look, I respect Tig's performance as Terry Silver, and I think he's a fantastic character. To those that are quote horrified that you're a fan of him, I say quote, we all fall short sometimes. It's fine. Yeah, I love that. See, and Peter is very wise in the ways of the Miyagi-verse. And so thank you, Peter. Thank you for sharing that. And Big T also says, clearly Andrew's parents raised him right. Thumbs up. That's wow, Andrew. This is a momentous day. You're getting quite an endorsement from Big T himself. So that's really great. Clifford, thank you so much for the super chat, Clifford. Hello, Ken and Ander. I ask you both, what would upset you more, the betrayal by Silver itself or that sinister grin he gives in that scene? Also, will we hear more about Kim Sun Young in season 6? So the betrayal by Silver itself, I'm thinking that must be the season 4 finale when Terry Silver betrayed John Kreese and sent him to jail. I think. What do you think? What does that upset you, Andrew?
I, you know, I think going into season 4 it was a very interesting exploration of a dynamic between Kreese and Silver, because obviously in Karate Kid 3, you know, Kreese comes to Silver. He's basically broken. He's lost all his students, and you know, he's basically, as he says, you know, he's going to give up. So actually, Terry just takes over. So Kreese, you know, goes to Tahiti and kind of takes a backseat, lets Terry run with it. And then, of course, you see in season 4 that Terry is trying to do things his own way, and so Kreese is saying that, hang on, you actually know I'm in charge here. And I think I've said in a comment before that one of the things I was worried about in season 4, especially after that, I think it was episode 7, after they've had their bet that Silver's won, and Kreese has kind of, you know, played the captain card on him, called him lieutenant. That I was very worried that they were going to make Silver just a submissive character to John Kreese. And for me, actually, that betrayal at the end, it just brought back, yes, like, this is Terry Silver. You know, as you've said in your videos before, Terry Silver loves to be in control.
Yes.
And he's taken that back, and he's obviously got someone like Kreese who is trying to manipulate him, and he is very aware this is what's going on. So pulling that move, actually, for me, it was kind of a shame in a way that the Silver Kreese relationship kind of disintegrated like that. But if one of them was going to come out on top in that situation, then for me it had to be Terry Silver, and I was really pleased that that's how they worked it.
Yes. And so, yeah, very, very well stated. Thank you, Ander. And I guess the second part is, do you think we'll hear more about Kim Sun-young in season 6? Do you think we will? Do you think we'll get more mention of Kim Sun-young or more flashbacks at all?
I would hope so. And obviously, there's so much speculation we can make about season 6, but for me, I believe that Kreese will meet up with Kim Da-eun. I think it was clear from when she was introduced in season 5, she has a good relationship with John Kreese. You know, she actually asks Silver about sort of like where Kreese is, for example. So I could definitely see there being some interaction there, and you know, it would make total sense if they're meeting up that we would hear more about Kim Sun-young. Obviously, she then has to fill in, you know, sort of a bit of a backstory about what Silver was trying to do in the conversations that they were having. So I think it's entirely possible, and it would be great to have another one of those characters that was obviously only mentioned in the Karate Kid films to actually make an appearance and learn a bit more about him and his style, and you know, basically, I guess the question of why, which is what most backstories are trying to answer. So why were they the way that they were?
Right. Right. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Clifford. Thank you for the great comment. TXR, who is a channel member, thank you, TXR, has a question for Ander. It seems you're a big fan of Thomas Ian Griffith, but is he better than Tim Curry? That's an interesting comparison. What would you say, Ander?
So a bit of a backstory is that TXR is actually my brother. So that's where this comes from. And our growing up, our sort of like our big, these actors that you would watch any film regardless of how poorly or well received it is, because these actors are in there, and Thomas Ian Griffith being one of them, but also Tim Curry. And Tim Curry we know best for Home Alone 2. That was a British version of the Worst Witch film he was in, but obviously he did lots of things like Rocky Horror Picture Show, Muppets Treasure Island, all different films. And he's very like sort of, I guess, a quintessential British actor, Tim Curry. And whilst quite different to Thomas Ian Griffith, he is another one that he steals the show. Much in the way that you could argue Thomas Ian Griffith saves Karate Kid 3, Tim Curry saves Home Alone 2. He is by far the most interesting character in the films. And it's a very difficult one to, I guess, to actually weigh them up against each other, because they both, I guess, get a similar end product, but in very different ways.
That's fascinating. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, TXR. And good to meet you, Anders' brother. Thank you for joining us today. NASA Cans fan, thank you so much for the super chat. That's wonderful. $20. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. He says, Daniel has an ego problem. He did the same to Johnny regarding teaching in season 4, Daniel's way or else. And yeah, Ander, we're going to get into some discussions about this being the last season of Cobra Kai in a little bit, and this is the end. You guys have had just so many great comments. We haven't even gotten to all that yet, but this is a wonderful point that I think we need to bring up and talk about, is the fact that look at Daniel's behavior. It's a bit tyrannical if you think about it. Like, I don't see, and we've talked about this with Drew Roheli from the Last Word podcast. We've talked about this with Peter Vonasak from Cobra Kai Companion Podcasts on this, is the idea that is Daniel's behavior something that Mr. Miyagi would have approved of? How would Mr. Miyagi have counseled Daniel in this situation? Would Mr. Miyagi have endorsed this idea of stamping out Cobra Kai, like completely stamping out Cobra Kai so it doesn't exist in the world? Is that the Miyagi way? I don't know. It seems like Daniel's being a bit tyrannical, where he has his idea of what's right and he has to impose that on the rest of the world. I don't know. How do you see this, Andrew?
I think Daniel suffers from the fact that he is trying to uphold Mr. Miyagi's legacy, and he does sort of admit himself at the end of season 4 when he talks to Johnny that um, that basically the sort of teachings of Mr. Miyagi were, he kind of sets the foundation, but it's up for you to like sort of grow in the way that is most appropriate for you. I think we see from Mr. Miyagi, he doesn't encourage fighting. He is very much, against fighting like as much as possible. I mean, to me, the closest character in Cobra Kai you actually have to Mr. Miyagi is probably someone like Dimitri, who is very much, he hates fighting. He doesn't want to get in a fight with anyone, but he will do it to defend himself, which is very much what Mr. Miyagi was all about. And I think in this situation, he would be, personally, I think he would be counseling, actually listening, try and talk it out, which is exactly what he tried to do in the first film. He tried, he went to Cobra Kai, he spoke to John Kreese and the students and basically asked them to leave Daniel alone. And when it became obvious that, that wasn't going to happen, that is when, he made that agreement that, they decided in the tournament. But this wasn't, his go-to, wasn't. He actually said, he said no more fighting, is when Kreese obviously comes out of his famous line, "This is a karate dojo, not a knitting class."
Yes.
I don't think Miyagi would be as obstinate as Daniel is. But then we don't know if Mr. Miyagi held anyone in the same esteem that Daniel holds Mr. Miyagi. Everything Daniel says and does, he tries to pull it back to Mr. Miyagi and trying to do what Mr. Miyagi would do. But at the same time, he is still his own person. And I think he struggles with getting that balance of, honoring Mr. Miyagi's legacy, but also, doing what he thinks is right.
Right.
So, no, I don't think Mr. Miyagi would be acting in the same way Daniel is. I think, yeah, Daniel's kind of a bit misguided in what he thinks is the right way, which for him is anything that he thinks Mr. Miyagi would be doing.
Yes, 100% agree. Thank you, Ander, and thank you, NASA, for the wonderful comment and super chat. And then Big T says, everyone watch my good friend Ken's excellent documentary about life as an employee in my prestigious organization. Thank you, Big T. Yes, if you haven't seen it, everyone, check out Cobra Kai. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Okay, Ander, we are at the point right now, we are just getting into sort of the main topic today, which is this the end? Cobra Kai season 6? How do we feel about this being the last season? So let's get into some news.
KenCast news.
All right, everyone, it's time for news. And before we continue talking about all of this, I want to give props to Ander for his amazing background, amazing shirt. You've got like a Miyagi-Do t-shirt on, right, Ander?
That's right. Yep.
That's wonderful. And for everyone who doesn't know, Ander is governor. You've seen him in the chat. This is a special members, finalists and above, having invited to be on today, get their wisdom. And Ander is here with us. It is great to have him here. And so, Ander, let's talk about some news, I guess you could say. The first thing I want to bring up is John Hurwitz tweeted. This is kind of some interesting news. He says, to Sensei Kreese, second place, maybe no place. But I still think it's pretty badass that you've made our little old karate opera the fourth biggest series on the planet. Thank you. So now Netflix is, because they have like an advertising tier, they're subject to the Nielsen ratings. So now we have the Nielsen ratings that show how many minutes were viewed on all these streaming platforms. And Cobra Kai is number 4. Which is pretty huge. The only original series ahead of that is Wednesday, Ozark, and Stranger Things on Netflix. This is pretty incredible, I think. And it talks to the strength of the series, how big, the fan base is, how widespread it is. but maybe how strong the entire franchise is going forward. What do you think of this when you see this, Ander, and the idea that season 6 is the last season? Because to me, this would seem to indicate they could have renewed it for 2 more seasons, probably. Does this mean anything to you in the grand scheme of things, the fact that Cobra Kai has such a strong showing?
I mean, I think absolutely there could have been at least 2 seasons, and I think that's why we're speculating over whether or not season 6 will take the same format as the other seasons that they've done, or whether they will try and increase the length of it to, try and like round it up, or round it off. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. It shows the strength of the Cobra Kai series. They've obviously done a fantastic job of bringing in like a new generation of fans while still staying true to, the fans of the original films, and making sure that, the balance is there, that, both sets of fans are entertained. And so, I think, they've done a phenomenal job with it. Obviously, this was quite a recent posting, and I'm not sure about the other two, but I know Wednesday is obviously a much more recent series to come out than season 5 was. So whether this may have been done at a different time and Cobra Kai could have been even higher. I think I've seen like Ralph Macchio and William Zabka have both posted stories to Instagram where actually Cobra Kai has at times been the highest streamed show on Netflix. So yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of a fan base to still appeal to, and I think there is still more story to tell to at least have another couple of seasons of this. But at the same time, I think in some ways it's good to know what that end is to kind of work towards. Right. Because the last thing anyone wants, I think the biggest fear was we were just going to find out, no, they've cancelled it altogether. We're not going to get season 6. And so that season 5 ending, those cliffhangers were basically all we were going to be left with.
Yes, indeed. And, this kind of brings up, we have a lot of comments and questions about this. I want to continue going forward with some news. We've got, this is the tweet from Hayden Schlossberg from the announcement. And I want to go through a few of these. Official declaration from us. Big thanks to the fans for getting us to the finish line. Now get ready for one final round and lots of big surprises along the way. Okay, now this is an excerpt from their letter to the fans, and let's read this again. While this may be a bittersweet day for the fandom, the Miyagi-verse has never been stronger. This fandom is the best on the planet, and we hope to be telling more Karate Kid stories with you down the line. Because, as we all know, Cobra Kai never dies. Okay, in the meantime, strap in for the biggest season of Cobra Kai yet. And let today be a celebration of all that's come, as well as all that's still left to be told. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, now, with that in mind, let's move on. This happened today. Cobra Kai Kid, he has his stream coming up later today. I'll be doing some stuff with him coming up, and I'll keep you updated on that. But he threw this out. Comment your questions for tomorrow's live stream. And Hayden replied, and he said, when they say biggest season of Cobra Kai yet, what do you think they mean by that? So now Hayden on social media, he's a huge Terry Silver fan, but he just throws out these teases all the time. So obviously he is totally teasing us and making us look at that line that from the letter, basically saying this is going to be the biggest season of Cobra Kai yet. And so basically, this is, I think, what we got to figure out. What is going on here? And NASA, thank you so much for the second super chat. Thanks for supporting the channel. NASA says, because it's season 6 and it's last, would we possibly get 10 episodes and a 2-hour finale? So this is an idea of how it could be the biggest season yet, right? Longer episodes, a longer finale. And Andrew, I want to get your reaction to the possibility of longer episodes, longer finale, more episodes. I don't know, what do you think?
I think with all the speculation that we've had about how the series can go after season 5. A lot of loose threads still to tie up. Obviously, the big thing that's kind of been teased from season 5 was the Seikei Taikai, and I think that has to play a fairly prominent role in this series, in this season 6. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually had a time jump at the start of season 6, maybe going like 12 months into the future or something. So Johnny and Carmen have had their baby, and maybe so Silver is out of prison at this point, and we may just hear about all that going on in terms of I guess exposition from characters talking to each other, and it gives obviously opportunity for things to kind of be put in place ready for season 6 to go, which would obviously be a change from the regular formats of the seasons, because some of the seasons have started immediately on from the previous season. I think season 3 was 2 weeks after season 2 is when it kind of starts off. I think season 5 was maybe like 1 or 2 weeks afterwards. And I think there's still a lot more sort of that they can tell here, and it wouldn't surprise me for there to be a longer season in season 6 to make sure that they do wrap it up effectively. But yeah, I think in terms of like the biggest season, the Seikei Taikai seems to be like a key part of that. I'm hoping that Mike Barnes will become more prominent. So we only got him for 2 episodes in season 5, and I guess it was awesome to see him, and Sean Kenyon did a brilliant job with him, but it would be such a shame if that was kind of the only kind of appearance he had in the whole series.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's still a lot of stuff to to kind of find out, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, to me, when they say the biggest season yet, and thanks for the comment, NASA, thanks for the super chat. Kim really says this well. I really appreciate that letter he tweeted us to his fans, made us feel better. 100% agree with that. And Big T says that statement's absolute genius. Yes, indeed. Right. I think when they say that and they're reiterating that and they put it in bold, I expect it's going to be, in every sense, it's going to be the biggest yet. So I bet we're going to have the longest episode we've ever seen in the series. Yeah, probably towards the finale. Stranger Things did these episodes that were feature length. Who knows? Maybe the finale or the last 2 episodes will be almost feature length. And if you think about it, that's huge, because the first season was just 10 half-hour episodes, basically. So, you could have, if you have like the second to the last and the last episode of the series being an hour, maybe. I don't know if they'd go an hour and a half, but that's maybe the equivalent of, 4 episodes, 5 episodes in the last 2 episodes. Or they could go long. They could go more episodes. They could go 12 episodes. I'm not so sure, what they're going to do, except that would mean to me the biggest season yet in terms of story. Because if you're taking up more time, they're probably going to be cramming lots of great story into season 6 that it's going to justify the length of time being extended to tell all those stories. So I think the story will be longer, more packed than in other seasons. I think the biggest season yet could mean exactly what Andrew's talking about, the Seikei Taikai being, if that's the focus and we're going international and these are global stakes, we could be talking about going overseas, international sites, just raising this up to an epic scale internationally. We've got that with Kim Da-eun now, and she's from South Korea. This is like a completely international level thing now. So that's big, just the scope being the biggest yet. And Hayden's been teasing all these not characters, but like surprises. He said that a couple times. Get ready for surprises in season 6. And so I think we're going to have a ton of surprises. I think they're going to try to, if they can fit in any either cameos or appearances by legacy characters, I think they'll do it. I think we might be surprised at some of the legacy characters we'll see in season 6. We could be talking about celebrities because, say Andrew Garfield, and there are these other celebrities. Sylvester Stallone himself was a fan of the series and vocally talked about that. And, they've been big on bringing in just celebrities who are fans of the show for cameos or roles. And so we could have just amazing cameos that we see in season 6. So I don't know. To me, I think it's all the above. They're going to try to make it big. And of course, the big one, I think, is Hilary Swank as Julie Pierce in season 6. And at this point, I don't know, Andrew, I don't know about you, but I think there's just too much public will for this. And even by the appearances of Hilary Swank, she was interviewed multiple times about this, people asking her, is she going to be on Cobra Kai? And she made kind of a point to say, no one's asked me yet. It's the number one question I get asked. And, the creators, John Hurwitz, has been, tweeted very nice things, that she's an amazing actress and it would be amazing to work with her. I don't know. I think that's a slam dunk. I think we will definitely see Julie Pierce in season 6. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew?
I think so. And yeah, that could absolutely be part of, of the international tournament. It's entirely possible, she has her own dojo that could well be competing in this as well. And I think you're right, because we kind of had the same sort of thing with Sean Kanan, and there was so much speculation for so long that he would be appearing in it. He obviously did some interviews and stuff just around Karate Kid 3 and Cobra Kai and his future. And I know he absolutely did the right thing. He didn't really comment on speculation around him, as he said, like, it's not really fair to like sort of the writers of the show for actors to confirm whether or not they're going to be part of it until the time is right and they're doing maybe like their trailers or like the photos that they the promo photos they did for season 5 that showed Sean Kanan's going to be in it. And I think absolutely, and the writers have always said, they'll never rule out anyone from the Miyagi-verse being involved in it. I think she would be a great one to have. It'd be great to get Michael Ironside back in as well. I think he would be he could be a really good ally to John Kreese, and that would again give another perspective on both like sort of the Vietnam backstory, but also maybe a bit more about Terry Silver, because obviously John Kreese is the only one who really knew Silver properly in the Miyagi-verse at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And guys, I uploaded a short recently. You may have seen it, Instagram reel, but also YouTube short, about have we already seen Colonel Dugan in Cobra Kai? And so I kind of look at some of those flashback scenes, and I suggest that perhaps Colonel Dugan may already know Terry Silver and John Kreese. I don't know if it's true, but it's, I don't know, kind of haunting to me. If you think about it, it's like, wow, that could be it. So definitely check that out. One thing I do want to bring up is Disco Kid brings up she's pregnant with twins, mate. Okay, so here's the thing, though. If I understand the news reports correctly, I think she's expecting twins sometime in the spring. They won't begin shooting season 6 until late spring at the beginning, and it usually takes a few months to shoot. If this is like an epic, massive season, the shoot might go on longer. Who knows? It might go into 4 months or something like that. So I think that's entirely possible for Hilary Swank to appear in Cobra Kai, just based on that. Again, I don't know, all the personal details like on timing and everything, but it seems like it's entirely possible that Hilary Swank could do it. So I don't know. Do you think that's an obstacle, Andrew?
I think maybe in terms of being involved in the full season, it could well be. I guess I probably envisage there being something similar to what Elizabeth Shue did, so maybe appearing in a couple of episodes,
right,
rather than being like a main character in the season. I wouldn't say it completely rules it out. I mean, there's often issues, with filming stuff. Actors and actresses have different schedules. Anyway, right. They have other projects that they're doing, and so it's just a case of kind of like balancing when can we do the filming of those scenes that involve those characters. Right. So it does obviously create a little bit of an obstacle, but it is something that they could work around if both parties, were open to the idea.
Right. And Peter from Cobra Kai Companion last week, I want to bring this up. He brought up a very good point. In season 3, they filmed the entire season, but after the season was wrapped, then afterwards, they went out to Okinawa to film those scenes. So the thing is, even if the main shooting schedule is, say, over the summer and they wrap in late summer, it's possible that they could film additional scenes after that, because the series won't release until maybe December or into 2024. So I'm sure that there's a way to make it work if Hilary Swank is wanting to appear in the Cobra Kai series. So anything's possible. True Blue says 14 episodes, hopefully. Wow, that would be great. There's too many arcs to wrap up, to be honest. Like, how will any charges against Terry stick? Indeed, Ander, indeed. Who is going to fight at the Sekai Taikai in Cobra Kai? Yeah, I know. That's something that will probably take a little time to ramp up. How are they going to get their students in Cobra Kai? Are they going to convince some of these Cobra Kai students to come back? Is that possible? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question, isn't it? Like, how is this going to work? And so far, I think everyone involved, you can make a case that Cobra Kai and Miyagi Fang have people that may have done unethical things. And would the Sekai Taikai look at everyone involved and say, whoa, what were we thinking? You guys are just doing crazy illegal things. Why should we let you in? Like, will they have to sort of earn their spot again? Will they have to sort of earn the trust of the committee? I don't know. Do you think that those things could be wrapped up quickly, or do you think that'll take time to build throughout season 6?
I think it's something that would take a little bit of time. It's a tough one because personally, I wasn't overly sold on all the Cobra Kai students walking out on Silver. It kind of felt like because he'd lost a fight to Daniel, I feel like if Silver had won that fight, they wouldn't have all kind of left. I don't know. It seemed a little bit kind of odd to me, but I think you could also remind them, especially a character like Kenny, how much he actually helped them and has kind of brought him along. But I could also see, because I think that Kreese and Kim Do-eun will will team up together, and I could potentially still see Silver becoming a part of that. He has his resources and stuff that actually they need in terms of actually building out Cobra Kai with the kind of scale that he wanted. We know obviously from the season 5 flashback when Silver and Kreese spar that Kreese wasn't overly sold on Sekai Taikai, but I feel like Kim Do-eun is. I know people have suggested it, but I could definitely see a fight with Kreese and Silver, similar in a way to Miguel and Robbie, where they kind of hash out some of their differences and potentially end up with like an uneasy truce. And so that's, I don't know, I guess that's kind of how I would sort of predict Cobra Kai coming back. But then I have a fairly left field theory that actually Mike Barnes is in fact working with Terry Silver.
Yeah. I love that, Ander. And I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense because, things just didn't seem right. I don't think at the end of season 5, if you just assume that Mike Barnes is, I don't know. It just seems, I think there's something fishy going on. Do you want to tell us more about that theory?
So, I mean, I think for me it was the fact that, I think as we know that sort of Terry Silver likes to be in control, he likes to plan ahead. I don't think he would have put all his eggs in one basket with Kim Do-eun, especially as, it became very clear from that first meeting she wasn't someone he would be able to control. So I believe that he would have always had like a backup plan for this. Obviously, we're led to believe that he organised Mike Barnes' furniture store being burnt down, but as we also know that that store was mortgaged to the hilt, so Mike was clearly in like financial difficulties, which Terry Silver, prime person to sort all that out for you. And I think the fact that Mike wouldn't give Daniel a copy of a contract he had, and it maybe he doesn't own it anymore, but that kind of seems somewhat unlikely. But he gives him a phone number, which then goes to a voicemail, which Silver then has that exact voicemail on his phone. So that seemed a little bit odd to me. And I think also potentially the fact that Mike Barnes was taken out so quickly at the start of the fight when they'd broken into Silver's house, but the fact he's fighting with the other senseis makes me believe that he is a separate plan to Kim Do-eun and her senseis. I think I had a few more thoughts around it. I actually can't remember them off the top of my head, but
right.
There were just, I think there were just a few things for me that if that was the direction that they wanted to go in, I feel that they've kind of set it up in a way that they could choose to do that. But I think one of the great things with the series is that they set these things up that they don't necessarily have to commit to if they decide they want to go in a different direction.
Yes.
But when it kind of formulates like that, that you can go back through a series and kind of see where the sort of the warning signs were. Yeah.
It's interesting because you're right. Mike also says a strange thing, like when he's talking to Daniel and Daniel's, trying to get information from Mike. And Mike says something like, I haven't seen him in years. Not like 3 decades. I haven't seen him since the 80s. He says, I haven't seen him in years, which to me means he had some kind of contact with Terry Silver probably within the last 10 years. To me, if you were to say, I haven't seen him in years, probably in the shorter term. So what is this contact that Mike has had maybe with Terry Silver in the somewhat recent past? I don't know, maybe. And then I agree with you, like either Mike is already maybe working with Terry Silver or Mike is in a prime position to be bought by Terry Silver now. Like where Terry knows that Mike might be working or know Daniel and Chosen and everything like that. And he's in financial straits and Terry can just swoop in and take care of Mike's financial problems. If he starts maybe being a spy for Terry Silver or working for Terry Silver and Mike turns out to be a surprise heel turn in season 6. I think there's something fishy going on there. I love that thought. I love that thought. Max Kelly. Okay. He's saying no, only 10 episodes, but 10 episodes, 1 hour long with the finale 2 hours long. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's see. Rabana Hayden Christensen. Yeah. That's we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's in here now. Oh, that's great. One thing I love about KenCast, guys, is not only do I have all your great comments, we get people like Big T. We get Chosen himself. Mike Barnes has made an appearance. We've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's here too. So really, I mean, Andrew, we are attracting, I don't know, the big stars from all the big franchises in the universe. It's kind of exciting. And then Peter says, take his teases with a grain of an atom. That's funny. I assume he means Hayden Schlossberg. Oh, yeah. Hayden said someone would die. Right. So this is a big thing, guys, if we're talking about what's going to happen in season 6. Every single season, there's like this tease that someone's going to die. Someone's going to die. Right. And maybe someone does die, but they're like, minor characters. Or it's a fake out. Like the big leak, I think, ahead of season 5 was they were starting to start rumors that Kreese was going to die in season 5, and it turned out to be a huge fake out. Sorry, spoilers, but what do you think, Andrew? Do you think they're going to kill off anyone?
I kind of feel if a character was to be killed off, it probably would be Kreese. They've done so many fake outs of John Kreese dying. Going back to Karate Kid 3, Silver tells Miyagi and Daniel that John Kreese has died. Johnny says that John Kreese has died in season 1 of Cobra Kai. And then obviously, we have the fake out at the end of season 5 where it looks like he has been killed and then it turns out he hasn't. So it would almost be appropriate that they actually end it with John Kreese being killed off. I would say, though, if they were going to go down that route with a character, especially someone who is perceived to be, on the evil side, that it would come as part of a redemption arc, and that would be kind of their saving grace. Their death is a sacrifice. So that would be kind of my thought on it. I don't really see it as a series that would just kill off characters. It's it's not Game of Thrones. It's not doing it just for the shock factor of it. There actually has to be, like most things that happen in the series, like there has to be a purpose to it. It's not just happening for the sake of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, people bring that up all the time, and I think that's a symptom of our serialized storytelling nowadays, is that people expect big twists and turns to keep viewers hooked. And that's kind of an easy way to do it, is to basically kill off characters. And we saw that, you're right, with Game of Thrones. You didn't know who was going to live or die, and you're kind of on the edge of your seat, and it was kind of like a big event when someone died. But yeah, the roots of this series, they're not like that. And it's like, one of the things I love about the series is it's not at that level where people are dying and stuff. It's about other things. It's about, learning lessons, and it's about bullying, and it's about parental issues and, trauma, all that kind of stuff. And it's not necessarily about killing people off. And you're right. I think they could do an amazing job killing off Kreese if they wanted to, like give him a justified death or something like that. But I kind of don't want Kreese to die. It's like, because then kind of the character's gone from the universe, and if they're going to continue in this universe, you might want Kreese around. Like, he might pop back up somehow. And I don't know. That's just me. Kim says, I hope Mike Barnes won't turn bad again. He's come such a long way. Yes, I hear you, Kim. I hear you. MOTU Thunder says, hi, Ken, I'm late. It's great that you're here. Thanks for joining us, even though you're a little late. And guys, there's so many great comments. If we don't get a chance to talk about them, definitely throw them in the video, the permanent comments beneath the video as well, because we'll all see them and talk about them after the discussion as well. But thank you guys for so many great comments. Max Kelly, Ken Cole, you should talk to the creator, John Hurwitz, about Bobby Brown being in season 6. Yeah, I obviously love Bobby Brown. I would love to see him come back. I'd love to see all of the original Cobras come back. There's so much material there, I think. Even how Bobby might talk with Daniel, and how he might interact with Kreese. We haven't seen Bobby interact with Kreese directly at all. I wonder how Kreese would, interact with him. And I would love to talk to John Hurwitz about that. But, obviously, you have to understand with the big three, they know this backwards and forwards. They love all the characters just as much as we do. And I guarantee they have so many ideas, and they're going to have to try and kind of cull their ideas, and create this season 6, this final season. So I know that they're going to want to do justice to the entire universe. So obviously I'd love to talk about it with them, but the thing is, I completely trust that they're thinking about all this stuff. I don't know. Would you say that's that's fair, Ander?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, I think anything that kind of happens I don't see them doing things that are just for fan satisfaction. Like I said, there is a purpose to everything that happens. And I've kind of found from trying to predict seasons before about what's going to happen to characters that I would say the writers are a lot smarter than I am in terms of kind of working a lot of this. And as I like an example of that was Hawk in season 4. So I had this feeling that after leaving Cobra Kai, that something was going to happen to Hawk. Like, he was going to get jumped by Cobra Kai. He was going to get beaten up really badly. And even when they kind of, they gang up on him in the tattoo place, I thought they were going to sort of give him a tattoo that said like traitor or something like that. And what they do obviously is cut his hair to be something that was shocking to him as a character, that, hit him really hard, but it was something he could grow from. And his part of his arc was basically finding that balance between Hawk and Eli. Yeah. And this was just something that, just getting beaten up, that wasn't going to do anything for him. That was just going to be a bit of payback which you might expect to happen, but it doesn't help to evolve the character at all.
Right.
So yeah, I think from what I've seen, what they tend to do with the characters is doing things that they can build upon and grow from. They are not things that just happen,
Right.
just because you think they should.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And Peter from Cobra Kai Companion Podcast says, I'm waiting for Marty or Doc to show up in this chat someday. Right. Well, I love the fact that Peter's actually brought up and pushed the idea along with Mike, Cobra Kai Wisdom. Who knows? Could we see Marty and Doc somehow at the end of the series in this universe? I know the big three are huge fans of the Back to the Future, and it would be kind of funny. I don't know, at the end, that would be great. Now, before we continue, Andrew, I do want to bring up something else, because people talk about what's going on. Will Kreese die? Will all these other people die? Is season 6 the end? Okay. But there may be more things beyond season 6. Not just, we've talked about potential spin-off series, young Miyagi series, young Kreese Silver series. That would be a lot of fun. But with these characters, maybe there's a spin-off or a continuation. I want to bring up this quote. This is from William Zabka back in September, right ahead of the season 5 release. And he said, and he's responding to a question, and he's kind of joking, yeah, there's no end game at all. We'll keep this thing going for another 10 seasons. Then he laughs. But then he kind of levels with everyone, says, there's an end game. Everything's pointing to a place on the map for sure. It's a matter of how many we're going to get to do that, but there's definitely an end game. Then he says, we're going to end the series, and then I think we're going to do a trilogy of films. Like, he said this in September. So this could be just William Zabka's wish. It could be his idea, or this could be a huge tip-off of exactly what the idea is and the agreement maybe they came to with ending the series at season 6, and then Netflix might produce a trilogy of films. So I don't know, Andrew, do you think that we should pay more attention to this quote from William Zabka? And if so, this story might continue beyond the end of season 6, in which case we really wouldn't want to kill off any of these amazing characters, right?
No, absolutely. And I think killing off any characters reduces your kind of scope for future storylines, because the best you can kind of do is those characters coming back in either like sort of flashbacks, a bit like when Kreese was talking to the psychiatrist in the prison, and they had the flashbacks with like Captain Turner, for example, who obviously did pass away in Vietnam, but they kind of bring him back in that way. But you can't really go forward with them. So yeah, I personally, I don't want to see characters being killed off. Personally, it's in terms of the quote from William Zabka, it's difficult to tell whether or not the trilogy of films is a tongue-in-cheek comment or something that actually they could do. It's right. I think for me, it's probably difficult to comment on until we see how the season ends,
right.
how they actually end the series of Cobra Kai, because I'm sure there are things that could happen in future, because it's how time works. You don't just stop it and then nothing happens. So personally, I'm not sure what they would do with a trilogy of films at the end of it. But having said that, once season 6 has come out and we've watched it, and we're going to a new round of speculation about what the future could hold, like, for the series.
Right.
And I think personally, my gut feeling at the moment is that it's most likely to be like sort of prequel type work, so like backstories for some of the main characters, rather than necessarily going into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really difficult to tell at this point, as there's still so many unknowns with season 6, let alone going beyond that.
Right. And I think one of the brilliant things about the Cobra Kai series, and it's worked for multiple generations, there's sort of the OG, generation fans of the original films, and we have those legacy characters right now in Cobra Kai. But then we have these great new characters, these younger characters, that really the series could end, but then you really could have, even in 10 years, 15 years time, you could have these characters return for a whole new series, and it's their story that they're continuing. And it's the way they've set it up. It could just keep coming back like periodically, like with new series with these characters and everything like that. And so even if we don't get something right after season 6 that's a continuation of these, that's not a flashback, as Andrew was talking about, it could still come back, again in the future, because there's so many fans, so many young fans of this series now, that I'm sure there'd be an audience and a market for that refresh again in the future. There's a lot of discussion talking about Chad McQueen as Dutch. People really want Dutch to come back. Disco Kid says Chad McQueen's a good age now and looks nothing like his Dutch character. He also suffers from problems with his legs. I don't know too much about Chad McQueen, and but he's obviously a great actor. If he's willing, I mean, it'd be amazing to have him back. But I think we've gotten a word from his daughter at least a couple of years ago that he won't be returning to Cobra Kai. But who knows? Maybe things will change. Alice Coyote says, at this point, knowing Chad McQueen won't return, would you be opposed to having the character of Dutch recasted just to have Dutch character appear in Cobra Kai? And before we answer this, I want to bring in, we've got a special guest, guys, to talk with us. We have Peter Vonasak from Cobra Kai Companion Podcast. Peter, thank you for joining us today. It's wonderful to have you. And I'd like to introduce you to Ander, who is governor in the chat. Welcome, guys. This is an amazing Miyagi-verse brain trust we have here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Ken. Nice to meet you, Ander. And I've been listening to the entire thing since the beginning, so a lot of great stuff here. The last comment here that was just made about the character of Dutch. I've been saying this. I know, I don't have the most subscribers on YouTube, and I don't think podcast as popular is as popular as I would like it for it to be. But this is something I have said, but that's not the style of the TV3, the creators. Yes, baby. Sorry. Go ahead. Eat your blueberries.
Hey,
Yeah,
Peter.
no,
Peter, your sound I think is breaking up a little bit. Do you have any other microphones you could use? It sounds like your sound is slightly breaking up.
Let me see if I can find something.
Okay.
I'll just say that's not their style.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Here, we'll get back to Peter in just a second. Right. So Peter says it's not their style. So that's kind of interesting. And yeah, Max Kelly says, I don't want Dutch recasted, and so, and Chad McQueen could return, and I kind of agree with that. Like, I think they're not going to do that. The only character I think that's been recasted so far is Allie's mother, but I think it was because, it's obviously a very small role in the original Karate Kid, and the actress just is at the age where she's completely retired. She's not, acting anymore. And frankly, even as a fan, I wasn't sure, like, is that the same actress or not? And so I don't know, for a role like that, I think it's okay to recast. I don't know how you feel. I know that there are a lot of purists who might disagree, but Dutch, I think any of these characters that have meat to them, that have fan followings, like, you do not want to recast those roles, right?
I completely agree, and I think for Ali's mum, it's such a small part that she plays in Cobra Kai. She's literally in one scene, and I don't think you even really see her properly. So I think that one was kind of fair enough. But yeah, I completely agree with Peter. It's not really their style of the writers to recast characters. We saw in season 3, the vice president of sales for Diona was the same girl who appeared in Karate Kid 2, right. Exactly the same one that Daniel saved from the storm. So the fact that someone who was such a minor character in Karate Kid 2, they stayed true to the actress and actually recast her as the adult version. I completely agree. I think, I don't know, I feel like it does a bit of a disservice to the character to recast them without a really good reason to do it. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be in favor of recasting. I think if Chad McQueen really doesn't want to come back, then I think then that's it for his character.
Right, indeed. And I want to thank NASA again for the super chat. Thanks so much. And yes, NASA points out the only recast has been Allie's mom, which, I think we can all agree was a fair recast. But yeah, it's not. I agree with Peter. We'll get Peter back here. Yeah, Peter, we were just saying we totally agree with you. It's just totally not their style. And I will go as far to say that I just don't think they should bring back characters that we haven't seen yet if they're not able to get the original characters. Like, Peter, I saw you on Twitter, talking about, Hayden's tweet, which we talked about today, just like kind of teasing, prodding us about this, like it's going to be the biggest season yet. And you were saying it's all in, like everything's on the table now. It's big. Like if Hayden's teasing that, and you were talking about other characters like Colonel Dugan and Ned and, all the other characters that we haven't seen. And I don't think I would want them to bring back any of those characters if they weren't able to get the original actors. Would you agree with that, Peter? Oh, hang on. Let me unmute you.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I was adding Walton Goggins. I forgot that
Yes.
I was muted. So they have a narrative. They've had outlines for 6 seasons for years. We've been following the show since the very beginning. And I don't know. I don't remember if this part was in my interview with Kamen. Is nothing big, but and no secret if you read anything or listen to anything the man says. But Kamen is not a fan of the next Karate Kid,
right? And
bringing in Julie Pierce is one thing, but to try to bring in the Alpha Elite and Colonel Dugan, you know what I mean? And the creators, they do speak with Kamen about bringing certain characters back. If you guys saw the clip that I shared after the reveal of Mike Barnes, him saying that like the creator said, "Hey, Mike Barnes," and even he was all like very against it in the very beginning, and they used him well, and Kamen was very impressed on it by Sean's performance. So that's something to consider. I don't think that's the end all be all. Whether Kamen says yes or no to certain characters. But I think by season 6, I think people are concerned because we've been burnt before by other series, Game of Thrones and things of this nature. I've always compared Cobra Kai to Breaking Bad in terms of the writing and the intricate storytelling. They don't introduce you anything and not bring it back. When Johnny said bye to his Cobra Mobile, I said, "There's no way that doesn't come back at some point." You know. That was the Ryzen of Cobra Kai, right? Like that eventually came back. So I feel the creators, they will tie up any loose ends. And I think they tied up a lot of the smaller loose ends with the smaller characters, like for example, the Ginger Twins, we got, if you want to call it a closure, so a lot of characters, there's a very good chance that might've been the last time we see them. In some capacity, because I think there is a bit of a focus going into season 6. They're not going to handle this like any other season and just start, creating a lot of brand new characters. They will to serve the purpose of the plot of season 6 and have it, kind of conclude on their own terms. And I know a lot of concerns are like, well, we don't want them rushing things, but that's the reason why they didn't stagger show running Obliterated and also Cobra Kai season 6. They wanted to focus on Obliterated, finish that, then come back to Cobra Kai. So this was all part of the plan, and we only got seasons 4 and 5 because Netflix wanted another season for business reasons. So I think with the delayed announcement, if you want to call it that, I have no input on this, but in my opinion, there were certain things that they were probably getting ironed out in terms of the season 6, it being the final season, and maybe there's talks of those potential spin-offs. We kept on hearing over the last couple of years.
Yes, indeed. And Peter, you brought up a couple of really great points. I hear what you're saying about Robert Mark Kamen, and the fact that he did not write Next Karate Kid. He probably, as you're saying, didn't like how that one came out and how it was written and everything like that. Because I know one of the big problems that faced the producers, even with Karate Kid 3, is they tried to go and get another writer, and we're going to have to look at that initial script for Karate Kid 3 too. It's interesting when you read it, but Robert Mark Kamen says, they came back to me really quickly because no one else could write Mr. Miyagi. Like, they just had trouble writing Mr. Miyagi. And, maybe we should have an in-depth discussion sometime about the next Karate Kid. But, I would argue that perhaps you can sense that a little bit in the next Karate Kid. It's a different writer. Miyagi sounded a little different. Obviously it's Pat Morita, so that's great. But you could see those problems. But here's the deal. If you came to Robert Mark Kamen and said, hey, guess what? We have interest from Michael Ironside appearing in this. And Michael Ironside, to anyone who was around in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, I mean, he is an institution. He has played so many roles. And if Michael Ironside is willing to make an appearance in Cobra Kai, that would be hard to turn down, don't you think?
Michael Ironside is up there with Tig.
Yeah.
Tig at some point stopped doing movies. Michael Ironside could continue doing them. If Tig did too, he'd be in some of those. Maybe Tig could have been in Terminator Salvation. We don't know.
Right.
They're both very great actors, but no, I agree with that. It all comes down to how are you going to use them. Kamen was against Mike Barnes. He ended up liking Sean Kaden's performance. So you just never know. And I think when it comes to the legacy characters, I think that's when they probably have that talk with Kamen, but ultimately it is their show. So I feel this is another thing. We say it, but I don't think we're hearing ourselves say it, especially when we're speaking about it. But the creators, John, Josh, and Hayden, are big fans themselves. So they're not doing this for us. In a sense, they're also doing it for themselves. And this is what I said about my non-spoiler review for season 5. I said, we're probably one of the few fandoms that we could actually say fan service is actually not a bad term in our fandom, because the creators are also fans. They've been wanting to see the continuation, and they have their own ending to it.
Right.
So we got to trust them.
Yeah, very well said. Now, Andrew, let me get your thoughts. Would you be down with Michael Ironside coming back? Would that be something that you would really like to see? Or could it be like a take it or leave it with Colonel Dugan for you, Andrew?
I think having someone like Michael Ironside would be brilliant to see in the series. I mean, I've kind of said before, I wasn't a massive fan of an ex-Karate Kid personally. So I don't have a strong feeling, but I want to see those characters back in Cobra Kai. But given what the writers have been doing so far, I think they could find a way to actually work these characters into the series. So I think sort of fan service, yes, that's a good thing, but I don't think that they would do something just for the fan service of it. They would work out a way, what is the best way of actually integrating them. And something like the Sekai Taikai just opens up so many possibilities for how far stretching that is, or far reaching, that there's a lot more scope to bring in some of these other characters from the series. But I think, someone like Michael Ironside, obviously incredible actor, he would be, he could be a great asset, to the series.
Right. Absolutely. And then we're going to be joined by another person here in just a minute. I want to get Peter's reaction to this. And I know, Peter, you saw this back in the day. This was a quote from William Zabka before the release of season 5. And I'm wondering if he's already told us what the plan is with Cobra Kai. And I'll go to the last line. We're going to end the series. Then I think we're going to do a trilogy of films. He said this in September. And I'm wondering if he has already told us what the plan is, that maybe they negotiated that this would be the last season of Cobra Kai, but then after that, we're going to get a trilogy of films. Because we know from this snippet from the letter from the Big Three, they say this fandom is the best on the planet, and we hope to be telling more Karate Kid stories with you down the line. So I don't know. I want to get your reaction to that. Do you think that that's the plan? Do you think that that's realistic and that's what's going to happen? We're going to actually get a trilogy of films after the release of, or the finale in Cobra Kai season 6?
The short answer is yes. The extended answer is in what capacity? I kind of forgot the language already. Was it the Karate Kid stories? What did they say? We want to continue the.
Let me bring that back up again. They say telling more Karate Kid stories with you down the line.
Okay, so they're very careful with their use of words.
Right.
A Karate Kid story is an underdog story. The new kid, these type of familiar beats, right? We did it with Kenny. We did it with Miguel. He's not saying that he will be back. He could be back as a executive producer for these films. Who are we actually following? We don't. He's not saying we're following Johnny and Daniel after the series. He just says we. So at least it sounds like he is potentially involved in what could become a trilogy. Maybe they talked about, after this, we're gonna follow Kyler for some reason.
Yeah.
I was trying to grab somebody really unexpectedly, but maybe it's like a anthology. It's like 3 films, but an anthology. So there's like 3 different people that we're following, maybe different timelines even. Was it your stream that I brought up speaking with UG back in August?
Yes.
Okay,
indeed.
so I'll bring it up again for those that didn't watch the replay or were not in the chat room. Before season 5 came out, I went to go visit with UG up in Seattle. And again, this is before we saw season 5, so we had no idea what kind of role Chosen would play. I didn't think he was going to have that big of a role. I didn't know how many episodes he was going to be in. And he just kind of, I was up there with a friend of mine, and he just kind of casually asked, like, hey, do you think people would like a Chosen spin-off or a prequel?
Right.
I go, I don't know about the other people, but I sure as hell will. And I told him, I go, we saw Chosen show up at the end of season 4. We don't know what he's going to do, so I don't know how people are going to receive him. And after watching season 5, I go, it's almost a no-brainer. Like, you almost gotta give us that Chosen, whatever it is, a prequel or continuation. And he's become, a combination of Karate Kid 2 Chosen, Cobra Kai Chosen, Sato and Miyagi, all in one character. And so people just loved him, and he was in all 10 episodes. So and so it could really be anything, but it sounds like they've talked about what after Cobra Kai.
100%. Okay, guys, I have the pleasure right now of introducing you to another channel member who you've seen all the time in the chat. This is Chris Klotz. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to this discussion. We're talking about Cobra Kai season 6. How are you today?
Oh, not bad at all. Been very interesting listening to all the theories, and well thought out theories, I might add. And first I'd like to say hello to Ander again. Seen him before, and I think I heard that he's related to Tim Curry. Is that what I heard?
No, I'm afraid not. No, it's no, it was my brother who made the comment about comparing Thomas Ian Griffith to Tim Curry. No, unfortunately not. But that'd be a hell of a claim to fame.
Yeah, Tim Curry is like my favorite British actor of all time. I mean, he's such a strong performer. So anyway, enough about that. Go to what we're
loved him in
about.
Clue. It was great in Clue.
Oh yeah. I want to go back to a comment that True Blue made about 14 episodes. I kind of have a theory on this. How Netflix likes to end some theories or some shows, and there is precedent for this. They have Cobra Kai season 6 part 1, and then a part 2 later down the road. You got Stranger Things has part 1 and then a part 2 in their final episodes, and Manifest, same thing. They had part 1 and we're waiting for part 2. I think that comes out in June or something. So there could be a chance. Imagine the cliffhanger we could have at the end of a part 1 And then, of course, there'd be some kind of time gap, waiting for the part 2 to drop, and that would really drive our fandom crazy with all the new theories. So it's just a thought.
That's a really good idea, Chris. And I want to bring everyone's attention to Hayden's tweet today. His reply to the Cobra Kai kid. Let me bring that up. He was kind of poking everybody, saying, when they say the biggest season of Cobra Kai yet, what do you think they mean by that? Of course, Hayden was talking about himself, and kind of teasing us, but that would qualify for making the season the biggest yet as well by having it into 2 parts. That's a really interesting idea. There would be so much story and so much content that they'd need to divide it into 2 parts. Yeah, which obviously they did with Stranger Things, and you're right, Manifest. And of course, we talk about, Peter talked about Breaking Bad. They ended up doing that with the final season of Breaking Bad. They split season 5 up into 2 parts. So I don't know. That's a great thought. Andrew and Peter, what are your quick thoughts on that?
Andrew, I'll let you go first.
Anna, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of my favorite shows. This was actually a Netflix original show. This is one that ended a few years ago and was not part of the examples that we've been giving here in terms of like a part 2. Orange is the New Black. They kind of maintained their format and ended that way. But what I did like about their final episode of the series is that they kind of flashed to a lot of characters that we haven't seen in seasons, just to kind of show where those characters were now, to kind of give us like a tying up the loose ends kind of thing. So like, Ken, you flashing that back up on Hayden's tweet back up on the screen there, it made me think, what if in not even just the final episodes, but throughout that season, what if they hit us with just about everybody that we've had from the entire series show up in that last season to serve, like a small part one way or another? We're going to get the Train Crews pop up. We're going to get Jimmy to show up with Bobby in some capacity. And Sean is going to finally get out of jail and reunite with his brother Kenny. We're going to see all of those characters come back in season 6 to kind of give their send off to those characters. And maybe season 6 is going to wrap up with a nice bow and a happy ending. So maybe that's another way of like the biggest season yet, is bringing all those characters back somehow to say goodbye.
Very interesting. Very good. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I really like Chris's idea, and I think given how much we feel that we still need to tie up all the loose ends that they have, the sort of the character development, even some of the gaps that we want to see filled. The things like, I think there is still more Terry Silver backstory prior to Karate Kid 3 that could be told, because I think there's still a gap from the flashback Terry we see to the one we see in Karate Kid 3. Mm-hmm. But also, I'd like to understand more about what happened immediately after the events of Karate Kid 3. We know from a deleted scene that Terry lost his business and then had to build himself back up, but we don't know really about his relationship with Mike Barnes at that point. Whether or not he blamed Mike Barnes for some of this, whether there's any retribution, it hasn't really been explored yet. But I think the idea of actually kind of almost splitting it into 2 kind of gives a bit more time, because you can kind of have some episodes that are sort of the more immediate aftermath of everything in season 5, but then also gives you, like, I guess, that natural gap to kind of have a time jump to go into the future and actually tie things up a bit more there. So it's not something I'd thought of before, but I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think there are seasons that have done that successfully. So it could well be an option for the writers.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and Chris, I love that idea, and yeah, I'm kind of half expecting that now. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really great. I want to thank you so much, NASA. My goodness, thanks for the super chat, help supporting the channel. And he says, to piggyback off Peter's point regarding the big 3, they have served us as fans very well because they've been willing to directly engage us and encourage fan creativity. Other shows have not been nearly as accommodating. And I just like to point out, NASA, that's a great point. And guys, how many other showrunners, I've seen it occasionally where showrunners write a letter to the fans, but nothing like that. Like that just exuded just love and appreciation and camaraderie with the fandom that I don't think I've seen almost ever with any kind of showrunners of a series. And I think it just speaks to the level of fandom. Like they say that they're the best, we're the best fans of the world, which is great, but they are fans too. And you really get that sense. And in a way, I kind of don't want them to go for that reason. Like it's kind of a sort of an extended TV creative family that's, you know, it's always great to look forward to what they come up with. I don't know. Do you have any kind of messages or thoughts about just the creators and how great they are, like with the fans and everything? Chris, what do you think? What's your impression of
these
John, Josh, and
creators
Hayden?
are so exceptional at what they do. I mean, they've really taken this from a fan's perspective, written it that way, and also at the same time keep us wondering what the heck is going to happen next. And it's just you just never really see this kind of I don't know what to call it, stuff from the creators, you know, in other series that just keep us wanting more. I mean, the fandom is so huge. And that's why I think there will be two parts. At least I'm hoping. I mean, everyone's hoping for more. But that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think, Ander?
Yeah, I think it's been great actually, the level that they have engaged with the fans, and I think also how aware they are of, I guess, all the fandom around the series. Even just little things like the school meeting they have at the start of season 3, and Daniel says about being bullied, and someone shouts, "Bullshit! I heard you were the real bully." As you know, obviously coming off the back of this, like, you know, well-known video that's kind of painted Daniel as the villain in the original series. So I think they are very aware of all the fandom around it, and I think it shows a really good understanding of the Miyagi-verse and the characters within it. And yeah, from my experience, I would struggle to name a show that's been able to do anything like that to that level, without it, I guess, being, you know, completely cheesy. So yeah, I think they've done an unbelievable job.
Right. And then obviously, Peter, you've stated this before, but like, I don't know what are your thoughts overall? Like if people are watching the stream right now and they see you, this is Peter from Cobra Kai Companion. Everyone needs to go follow you and everything you do. What would you say from your experience with everyone involved with the show, including the big three, John, Josh, and Hayden, the creators of Cobra Kai? What would your message to fans be about them and having the fans' interests at heart when making this series?
You know, they've been very approachable. When I say they, I mean John Hurwitz mainly. You know, Josh Hill likes to lurk a little bit, but they've been. John has been very approachable since day one. My first co-host was Tom, and he would often call John Hurwitz Mr. Approachable because he very much was. And there was a time that he would actually conduct Q&As on Twitter every so often. And we used to do episodes going over every single question that was asked that he answered. And so they've been pretty honest about things. I mean, there's some trolling here going on, and I feel some of that comes out when somebody gets kind of warm on their trails and things. Like if people kind of remember, there was one point John Hurwitz came out and was talking about you know, characters being related or whatnot. I kind of forget how he phrased it, but I think he was trying to get people off the Jessica Andrews scent. You know, that might have come I feel that there might have been before the premiere, but as most of us know, that Robin Lively showed up at the premiere.
Right.
Most people were like, "Oh my God, what is going on?" In my mind, I was like, "What is she doing there? They're going to need to do some collateral damage here because
Right.
people are gonna know." But she was out there
Right.
saying, "No, I'm just supporting my friends. You know, my part three friends are here, and I'm here." So they played their cards right, but you know they've. I have 5 interviews with the creators. They've come on every single season, and they don't have to, but they continue to do so. One of my listeners who started her own podcast, shout out to Sarah. She once said, whatever for whatever reason, the creators decided to, I don't know, choose me to be the bridge between the fandom and the show. You mentioned I've spoken with lots of people from the show, not just the cast, but I have spoken with most of the writers, many of the directors, and one of the patterns that you hear from those interviews is they have all been fans of the Karate Kid growing up. So we have something very special, and that's something that we need to be reminded of, that everybody involved are big fans of the movies. They all love and respect Mr. Miyagi. They all love Johnny and Daniel. They all love Terry Silver and Kreese. You know, they love to hate Kreese, and so whatever feeling you have a feeling towards those characters because these movies are classics, and the creators, they know what's on their shoulders and the pressure that they may be getting from everyone else, but from the what are we now, January? So the 5 years that I've been covering them, they have not I don't know, turned over and gave in to what the fans are crying for. They will, Elizabeth Shue, like, bring back Allie. Well, we didn't get her till season 3. These guys, the people involved on the show are patient. So as long as we are patient with them, whatever they give us will be fantastic. I have never once doubted them. I know there's cause for concerns for many of things before any season comes out, or even during production. People are always concerned about this and that. I'm a little bit different. I'm just like, whatever they give us is going to be great. Why worry about those other things? Because it's out of our control, and I feel when the fans start getting involved and starting petitions and things of this nature, things can get ugly. So I think with that letter, Ken, you mentioned, like, we're not gonna, showrunners have put out letters before, but not something like this that like our creators did. I think it comes from a place of like, hey, we're fans like you guys too. This letter seemed very personal and personable as well. But also, I think with our unique fandom, there's a lot of different dojos, and whoever you identify yourself with, we are all one and the same. And I think you could kind of get that from their letter. You talk about your Star Wars and your Sith and your Jedis. At the end of the day, I think most people are going to be like, yeah, I would side more with the Jedi because the Sith are clearly bad. And to each their own for those that want to follow the Sith or whatnot. But I think at the root of it, we all just want a really great story, and we just need to kind of remember to trust the creators. I think whatever it is, it'll be great. And Chris, to what you're saying, like the more we talk about it, the more I kind of want it. I feel these guys are also, I'm gonna use this phrase loosely, but a creature of habit, but like in a good way. I feel we're gonna get the same format, but it being season 6 and Hayden's troll of a tweet, biggest, all that, I can see maybe, maybe 12 episodes and the last 2 being longer. Fine, whatever. It's the last season. You guys do whatever you want. Just give us something good, which we already know it will be.
Right. That's a great thoughts, guys. Amazing thoughts. Comments agree. Adamant says the creators equal very thoughtful and creative, create sensational but believable storylines. Yes. Kim says the writers, they've been so gracious to us fans, the cast. I really appreciate that they revere us as fans. We're all in the Cobra Kai family now. And it reminds me back when they did the Live and Badass show in LA, and we had all the fans there and the creators were there and the cast. Josh Heald said something. It was either Josh or Hayden, or it could have been John actually, that said,
Josh.
Was it Josh? Yeah,
I know
probably.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes. He said, if we weren't up here making the show, we would be in that audience here watching. Whoever whoever was making this show, we would be with you because we just love it so much. We could be us making it, could be someone else making it, but we'd either be here on stage or out in the audience watching this. That was kind of a paraphrase, but it was really cool to hear that. It was so much fun, and it makes you feel like we're in really great hands. Now, guys, I think we're going to wrap this up, but from each of you, I kind of am interested to the ultimate answer to the question: is Cobra Kai season 6 the end? Do you think it's the end of the Cobra Kai franchise as we know it with these characters? Let's leave out potential flashback series and spinoffs. Do you think for this story, do you think season 6 is the end, or do you think there's more after that? Chris, I'll start with you.
I think there's more. I think it'll lead us into the spinoffs with other characters. I mean, for instance, what's Hawk going to be doing, or what's Miguel going to be doing? But Miguel, he's a big time actor now, so he's probably going to move on. So there is that. But as fans, we always are going to want more and hope, for great spinoffs and see our characters continue. So you just really never really can tell.
Yeah, 100%. Andrew, what do you think? Is this the end?
I think there will definitely be the possibility to build on the series that we've had. My personal feeling is that they will try to wrap season 6 in a way that you could finish it and be kind of content with how everything has panned out. I would say there's probably more scope for the younger characters to kind of go forward, and I would say that some of the older ones like the Silver Crease in particular, and potentially Mr. Miyagi, there are backstory that we could have from them. I feel like most of the scope going forward would be with the younger characters. They've still got so much of their lives still ahead of them. So I think they would leave in a place that you could build on it, but they will want to have a satisfactory ending that, for the series to sign off with, that, they can be content with.
Yeah, very well said. Peter, is this the end? Season 6?
Yes. Yes. A lot of these younger cast members that we have been following for years are, some of them are well into their 20s. Many of them have turned 21. Gianni DiCenzo, Khalil Everidge, Jacob Bertrand, I believe, is now 22. But Peyton List is doing shows, not just one series. Like, she's doing shows, she's making movies. Tanner Buchanan was in He's All That last year, during last season. But I feel, with the exposure that they have gotten on Netflix, it's only going to get bigger, and they're going to get a lot more opportunities. And I feel, as a young up and coming star, you want to try to go outside of something, so you're not being pigeonholed or typecasted in something at such a young age. Now I can see something with maybe Anthony, Kenny, Leah, maybe something like that, just because they are I thought they were going to have a bigger role in season 5, just because they were introducing like these 8th graders that are going to high school. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on going into season 6. But we also have to remember, Billy, Ralph, everybody else is 60 plus. Yuji Okamoto runs 2 restaurants in North Washington, so as much as we love these actors, I feel it's going to be tough for them to kind of spearhead a show. I could see them returning as those characters in a much smaller capacity. I would love that, but I do think this is the end for much of the storyline from the Cobra Kai series, but these characters can show up again in our spin-offs or prequels. I do very much like the idea of Breaking Bad kind of did this. I think they did it more to be fun in terms of like how these actors were going to show up in different things. Like, they had Pinkman driving off with the car, and then he shows up in the what's that video game series, the Need for Speed. You know,
Right.
yeah, he shows
Right.
up in that. So they were doing something cute where the next time we would see these actors were in something that was similar to where we saw them last in Breaking Bad. But it would be kind of nice that they would get like these little setups, you know, like Chosen tells a story or something that will kind of introduce us to like a prequel to Chosen, or not even a prequel Chosen, but like, you know, post Karate Kid 2 Chosen, something like that. You know, just get these like little Easter eggs and kind of little seeds that could blossom into potential spin-offs. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But I do think that this is the end for the majority of this story.
Interesting. Well, you know, I can't disagree with what any of you guys said. I will say I understand what Peter's saying, and I think he gave a lot of logical reasons why he thinks the way he does. However, I still think there could be an outside shot if Netflix wanted to, because they're doing this now. They're making high-profile theatrical films, sometimes that release in theaters for 2 weeks and then come back to Netflix. If it's a trilogy of films, perhaps the budget would be there, the desire would be there, because it wouldn't be the constraints of a series. Perhaps there would be more money involved if it was like an event film, that type of thing. So I'm wondering if we could get more story out of this if it were like a higher level, theatrical level trilogy. That's possible. And then I want to go back to the point that maybe in 10 years, 15 years, the younger characters of the show, we could have a revival and really take it along with the younger characters. You know, because, you know, as I mentioned before, this series really touched a younger generation as well, not just, you know, the older generation like us, but the younger generation. And they've now grown up with the series. And I think there'd be nostalgia for it. And I'm sure they want to revisit these characters again in the future. And I think that could be very possible as well. So I don't know, guys. We'll see what happens. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Everyone in the live chat, so many great comments. If we didn't get to your comment, be sure to put a permanent comment below. Thank you to all the members and super chats. Thank you so much. I want to give a special thank you to Ander Russell Governor, who you know in the chat. Thank you for joining us today. Ander, it was a pleasure as always, and we look forward to seeing you coming back. Chris Klotz, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for being a channel member and for all your wonderful thoughts and ideas about this franchise. We look forward to seeing you come back as well. And Peter Vonasak, as always, thank you for joining us, Peter. Just if anyone has not seen the Cobra Kai Companion podcast, he has so many other great, you know, he has Podstalgic. He has so much experience talking to people in the business about all these different franchises, but especially the Cobra Kai franchise. Go find out the answers to all your questions with all of his content. Go follow him on YouTube. Go follow him, his podcast. Leave him a great review. And Peter, thank you again for joining us. And everyone, thank you. And guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I look forward to seeing all of you back. Ander, Chris, and Peter. Again, in the future, we have an exciting year ahead, and it's not over yet. So there's going to be a lot to come, a lot of news. And as Hayden has promised, and I believe him, many big surprises. So we can't wait to cover all of that. Okay, everyone, we'll see you next time, and have a good